Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday, Matt. This is a good week for guests, man. I'm excited for Angie here.
Aren't they all? Angie, welcome.
Hi.
Angie, Roullier, like what do we, I always, the silent stuff at the end always throws me off.
Yeah, the second one, Roullier.
Roullier, got it. Okay, thank you. I'm like, I love names, but I'm always like, I'm great. I'm like a name ninja. And then I'm like, last week we had somebody on and I was wrong, like opposite wrong on both first and last name. I'm like, okay, great. Like, okay, this is awesome.
I would say it was where you put the accents on those.
Yeah. But it's like,
for fairness, I did call her Lee like 3 times.
Yeah. No, it was, yeah. She had like a very French feeling name, but like the first name said it like American and the second one was France. And I went the other way. I'm like, okay, so we'll just make this. Yeah. So anyway, it was kind of funny. Anyway, welcome. And you're from Michigan. So let's just say how fucking cold it is in Michigan right now.
Yeah, it's unreasonable.
It's unreasonable.
Yeah, the actual degrees is like -3, and that's not wind chill. That's just what it is.
Just how cold it is.
Just how cold it is. Yeah, we're over. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it stayed shaped like for a reason, but I think it got a little overzealous this time.
Yeah. Well, whatever's hitting everybody, we're supposed to get 20 inches of snow this weekend. And
Baltimore does not do snow. It'll be horrible.
Yeah.
We'll see in a week.
Yeah. Yeah, Baltimore, in 17 years I've been in Baltimore, I think we've had like maybe 3 of these kind of storms. Like it's been very, very few and far between. And when it happens, people just kind of, and actually I think it's kind of fun. People just throw their hands in the air and they're like, fuck it. We're going to just sled and drink stuff. And like,
you know what? And I think relevant to the topic right before we hopped on, my wife was like, do we need anything? Do we need anything? I'm like, I just put an order in at the dispensary. Go pick it up.
Yeah. Like, yeah. There might be some weed smoking going on in.
You're gonna lock me in a house with 2 teenagers? God damn it.
Yeah,
that's brutal. You're definitely gonna need to medicate.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just start there real quick, because you said one of the words that we hear a lot, but we never heard it when we were kids, right? You look like we're all in a similar age bracket, right? When we were kids, I told my 17-year-old this recently, a story of me in New York City in the late 90s, Washington Square Park, Sinatra Park in Hoboken, New Jersey. Just gotten back from the city. But anyway, we were smoking a joint looking at New York City, and, late at night, no big deal. Sinatra Park, for anyone who doesn't know, literally is the best view of Manhattan that there is, because it's not in Manhattan. You can see the whole thing. And we're just enjoying it. And I get a tap on the shoulder with the billy club. And he wasn't violent. In fact, he was very cool about it. He just like, hey man, come on, make it a little harder for me to catch you, kind of thing, and we just kind of put it out and moved on. But for 5 seconds, my entire world stopped, because I was like, oh fuck, like I'm going to jail. Like I was like, and I knew that was not likely, but it was illegal. And my whole frame of reference is around that sort of panic attack. I see people smoking weed on the street and I still kind of like look around. I'm like, who's here? Who's looking? And everything about that is totally changed, including this word, medicate. We're not just getting high anymore. We're medicating, right? Like, talk to me about your sort of evolution on this, because I know you got to have a story here.
Well, yeah, the same thing. I mean, I did, 12 years of Catholic school. The last 4 were all girls. So you can imagine, the lockdown. But
you got me beat. I was K through 12, but it was a co-ed.
Also all girls.
Yeah.
So it was the same thing. We're in between, the parked cars in the parking lot, but we've been conditioned. And still to this day, when I hear stories about people, taking just, mass quantities like on flights, so they're flying Michigan to, California, and I'm like, I just don't have the stones to do it.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've got a terrible poker face, and they're like, oh, it's my medicine, and, I'll do it. And I just, again, I don't have the stones to do it.
So Angie, and I think everybody has that experience. The first time I went to a legal dispensary, Matt's heard this. I paid, they handed me the bag, and I go, do I just leave? Do I just walk out? Like, do I got to put it under my shirt? And he's like, no, just go home.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have to hide this under the seat in my car?
What is the status in Michigan? Are you guys recreational? Are you medical?
We've been rec for quite some time.
Okay.
We have extremely liberal caregiver laws. still in place, which we really fight really hard to keep.
Sure.
So under adult use, you're allowed to have 12 plants or up to 10 ounces per household. But under the caregiver program, so I'm a patient, and let's say I have 5, I'm a caregiver as well, and I've got 5 patients underneath me, I can grow 12 for them as well. I can have a max of 72 plants legally.
Wow.
Medical, right.
Now, that's a farm.
If you know what you're doing, it's a shit.
That's more weed than you could smoke in a decade if you know what you're doing, right? Like, I mean, it's definitely.
Yeah, it's a lot. So so our medical program is absolutely dwindling once, adult use came on board. We had close to 400,000 registered patients and caregivers the night before we went recreational. Today we have less than 30,000.
Wow, that's a huge attrition.
It's huge. And it's not that these people just stopped smoking weed or they just moved out of state and disappeared. They just don't want to be on that list. And you really can't blame them.
Well, they can't own guns. They can't,
Well, hold on. I want to get to all that in a second, but like just one more note on this real quick. In Maryland, the differentiator between adult use and medical is actually strength as well. So like here in Maryland, if you are an adult use customer, you don't get most of the edibles, you don't get any of the sublingual or tinctures or anything like that. You're capped at like, what is it, Tom, like 24% or something?
Yeah,
THC,
and I think the amount you can purchase within,
and the amount
like
you can
they
purchase
have a rolling 30-day.
Well, you have that for medical too, but because I'm in
half. But it's like, isn't it like half of what the medical is?
Less.
Yeah.
And even in industry, like we don't have the caregiver thing, but we have an industry exception. So like, because I own headshop.com and I'm in the industry, like I have like a 6-ounce 30-day provision. And they have this weird calculus for how that translates to concentrates and dabs and all this other stuff. But like the medical, I think is 4, and I think adult use is 2.
Okay.
So it's a pretty steep, like chunk, like down, and don't quote me entirely on that, but I think those are pretty close.
Yeah. So we've got some different numbers, but it's mostly potency per package.
Mm-hmm.
Under medical, I believe it used to be you could go up to 400 milligrams per package for, say, gummies.
Yeah.
Where rec, you were capped at 200.
Oh, I see. So you just got to buy more.
But they still have like ridiculous, cap on like oil. So like Sofico, so like RSO. It's up to like 2,000 milligrams, and it's the state's regulating something they don't know. It's like, well, it's an edible. You shove it in your mouth, or you could throw it into a capsule. So again, they're regulating something that they don't know, but they're really trying to mesh the laws together in the policies. You can buy up to 2.5 ounces a day.
Day?
2.5 ounces a day. I couldn't afford more than 2 days.
Yeah.
But it's super cheap here. I mean, you can pick up ounces for, decent ounces for $75.
Jesus.
Right. That's cheaper.
Like we have some really high end eighths that are still in that price range. I mean, most of them are going for like $30-$40 now, but still that's huge.
Our market is so flooded, it's ridiculous. And because there's so much, I mean, it's a whirlwind, absolutely. But a lot of times budtenders don't even know what they're selling. Like I'll go in and I'll look at their bottom shelf and I'm thinking to myself, why in the hell is this on the bottom shelf?
Right.
I'm like, that. It looks amazing. It smells amazing. And then they've got their swag, on the top shelf.
Are you guys a victim to the THC, the higher potency seems to be the best movers kind of thing?
I don't know where that came from, but it's absolute nonsense. I've had 12-13%ers sit my ass down, and then 35%ers do nothing but give me a headache.
And it's funny, Garlic Wizard here,
I love Garlic Wizard.
Like it's like a 34% test. I could like literally just I could drive a car, teach a class, like it's like the least. It doesn't do, to your point, it does very little to me. Like I'm like, okay, this feels like nothing's happening. Meanwhile, if you have a really terpene, like I had a green crack one time that was like testing over like 4% terpenes, and it was like, boom. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. And I don't think that was over 22, 23, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, so significant drop in THC, but like that, for me anyway, it's that terpene like density, if that's a.
It is. It's all of it. It's other cannabinoids in there. I mean, I'm a big fan of whole plant medicine.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
minute
for sure.
you start tearing it apart and spraying bullshit and, trying to, put the genie back in the bottle, you've lost something.
Yeah, I know in Maryland, and I'm sure it's the same in Michigan, but like when they do the concentrates, they take a sort of a phenotype, stereotype of whatever they're distilling. They'll, obviously all the terpenes get torched off in that process, and then they re-add it in, sometimes with cannabis derived terpenes, sometimes not, and so now you've got linalool from lavender getting stuffed back into cannabis that had linalool in it. And you're like, well, wait a minute, like what kind of Franken butt are we talking about here? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but like, I see why they're doing it. It adds the flavor and the effect and all that, but it's not quite the same.
No, it's absolutely not the same. And it ends up smelling like that car freshener you get
exactly.
when you are detailed.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's no way that it can be good for you.
No.
Well, I mean, to make it worse, the workarounds for a lot of the head shops where they're using almost synthetic Delta 9 and then, filling that with whatever.
Yeah, science weed is a whole nother problem for me in my book, because it's like, I go to these trade shows and every year it's a different thing, and a couple years ago it was the Delta 8 and THC-A and THC-0 and all these, like, we just call them science weed, and they're like, oh, you got to try this stuff. And I'm like, I don't really want to. They're like, so finally I broke down and I took a couple drags off of a Delta 8 pen. And I was like, okay, so I guess if I just like massively over indexed on this thing, I could probably get a head rush, but like whatever little effect I got out of it was gone in like 10 minutes. And I'm like sitting there going, I think I just did more damage to my lungs with whatever carrier oil was in there than any effect, unless I'm a 15-year-old who can get this from a gas station, which I suspect is their biggest clientele.
Mm-hmm.
Then I see no value in that whatsoever. Like none.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, they've got to splice and dice just to see what the independent compounds can do as far as science goes, as far as pharmaceutical goes. And that's why they are tearing it apart.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like you said, I mean, you got these frankenoids. We barely have scratched the surface what the plant in its natural state can do. But yet we're making up bullshit already. Stop. Maybe let's figure out what the plant can do coming straight out of the ground before, you get the mad scientist involved and they start turning it into something else that we know nothing about. And then they're going to call bullshit on cannabis, even though it's not the plant's fault. It's the humans that started dickering with it.
It's definitely the human. It's always the human's fault, Angie. Come on.
Yeah.
The phrase "let me try something" doesn't always work out in everyone's favor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you when you're doing your work, I mean, are you sort of more, you look like you have a much more, global or at a minimum national stance on this than just Michigan. But I mean, how do you, I don't know, what's your view on the state of the union, as it were, in this?
It's crazy out there because we're all different. Everyone's got their own different laws and regulations and who can have it and who can't have it. And then, of course, we always get, the rearing of the ugly head of, we're going to reschedule it. To me, it's a double-edged sword. I'm all about access, but it's got to be clean access. To hear people like in, South Carolina and, Tennessee and places like that losing their access to the hemp market, it breaks my heart. People are losing their medicine just because somebody somewhere is greedy and they want, to keep their claws, dug into it. It's my understanding that Schedule 3 cannot be sold over the counter. So what the hell are they going to do? Are they going to shut all these pot shops down? Are they going to push them all back underground? Are they going to require pharmacists to be, in pot shop settings every day, all day? So I guess we'll see how it comes out in the wash. I don't see the DEA moving real fast. Just like every other time, they've been asked to, reschedule something that I don't think should be scheduled at all.
Right.
It's got more in common with broccoli than it does alcohol.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point, and one we've, been talking about. I mean, I've only been in this industry since 2002. So like, I certainly don't go back I mean, recreationally, I go back before that, but like in actual reality, I don't. So like, I can only kind of speak from that point forward. And since that point, it's been basically a rinse and repeat conversation, right? It's like, okay, how many times have we had this conversation? I mean, every
I'm sorry, you
president
guys.
since then.
You guys mentioned broccoli, and now I'm going like I can make a broccoli vodka. I think I think I can make a broccoli vodka.
That sounds fucking gross, dude. Like a broccoli vodka. Oh god.
Well, last time we had a drink experiment, Matt and I ended up not loving that. So
yeah. Well, no, we loved it, but one of them made me like sideways.
Well, yeah, that was it. That was it. I was done.
Yeah. Yeah, Angie, we actually joked around about like putting random shit that Tom and I like into a drink. And it turns out there's a drink called a bunny hug that has absinthe, gin, and scotch in it.
Woo! Gin is a girl.
Yeah. Oh, see, I was the gin guy. Tom is the scotch guy.
I was the whiskey guy, but it called for scotch. So where I'm like, yeah, well, we'll do scotch. That's close enough. But the absinthe, which I do also enjoy, is also not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, and of course we got the real absinthe with and so it was a rocket ship in the wrong direction at the time. Like
that was the one drink I had that evening.
Yeah.
It was more than enough.
Yeah. So about the rescheduling thing, like what's sort of your best case, worst case thoughts on that? Because I'm curious to hear your thoughts there.
Like I said, I mean, it all depends. I mean, if they're going to modify what Schedule 3 actually means and, allow these pot shops to go about their business and, because it's a $1 billion industry, you're not just putting it in reverse. You're not stopping this train. The one thing about the Schedule 3 conversation that is actually helping me when I go out there and I pound the pavement, a lot of people, of course, there's a huge stigma still around cannabis and they really like to argue with me. And my argument now is, well, testosterone is also a Schedule 3 drug. So should I judge somebody based upon their need for testosterone? Should I be out there carrying signs saying, you have no right to access to testosterone, regardless of whether I know you personally, You
think white males are going to let you regulate their bodies, which I understand. The humor in that statement, the sad humor, but...
Yeah, but they will shut my shit down, but it gives me a great comparison.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know me, and as long as I'm not hurting myself or anybody else, how is it anybody's damn business what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
And same goes for, the testosterone argument. So it kind of helps me shed light on kind of how dare you,
Sure.
Your business. And as long as, your toddlers aren't getting into your gummies, which, by the way, fuck you if that's what happens, because that's your...
Yeah, that's not anybody's fault.
You know what I mean? You put the whiskey up, you put the pills away, but you leave the gummies on the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
Dude, we don't even lock up handguns.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks, a toddler is offing somebody.
I know, but it's weed's problem.
It's weed's problem. Well, so now that's a great entree into the gun. I mean, here in Maryland, I don't know how it is in Michigan, but if you have a medical license here in Maryland, you cannot own a gun.
Same, and we're fighting it. You hear more and more federal stories coming out across the country how they are saying that it's unconstitutional. It's our Second Amendment right.
Mm-hmm.
Why does a cancer patient have to give up their Second Amendment right just to medicate so they can stop throwing up from chemo?
Well, the craziness is there's no other drug, and certainly more have a mental and psychological impact.
For sure.
That rule's in place, right? So if I'm taking barbiturates, no one's coming for anything of mine.
No, you can have a fifth of Jack Daniels in one hand and a fifth of Oxycontin in the other, and you can go hunting with your buddies all day, every day.
Right. Which is wildly less safe in every measurable way than getting high and going doing the same thing.
I don't know if I'm hunting if I get high. I'm probably going to be looking at trees or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'll go for a walk in the woods, but I don't want to do too much else.
Which is kind of the irony of that, right? Like, you're far less likely to do any of these things if you're high, right? Like, like, man. So, like, in Michigan, what's the chance? I mean, here in Maryland, I don't see that ever getting, like, I don't think they're going to make any inroads in that. Whoever got that put in there, I think it was like one of the conservative folks that said, hey, I'll only shut up if you put this in there and make me feel better, because they have an axe to grind about the guns as well. So, like, it feels like this was like a way they can feel of personal victory, but it's not founded in anything resembling logic.
No, absolutely not. And, most laws aren't. Again, they're regulating something that they know nothing about. And, I've heard stories of people staggering the way they get their medical marijuana card and when they go to get their gun license.
Yeah, that's that's the workaround, which is even more dumb.
Even here. So like, couples, if there's a married couple, one of them's a patient, one of them's a caregiver, and the caregiver is the one with the guns. It's so stupid.
It really is. And it's here in Michigan, it's an automatic 10 years. Bye-bye. I could have 5 plants out in my bullshit garden. And if I've got a shotgun, I live in the country. And if I've got a shotgun, in my house, that's an automatic. If they want to be a dick about it, that is like 10 years. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Even if you did the work around where you're like, get it first and then get your license second kind of thing.
Well, yeah, they never gave a way to surrender a weapon either in that plan. So even if you were trying to obey the law.
Yeah. And I am still in possession, whether I'm growing it for other patients, whatever. And here in Michigan, it used to be the requirement for a quote unquote cannabis plant was 8 inches or above. As far as, the height of the plant goes, they changed it to say anything with roots.
Okay. What?
Right. So think of you've got like 2-inch roots on this, bullshit leaf. And now all of a sudden you're in possession of cannabis.
Right. But you know what? Hey, let's just play devil's advocate for a second. Like those rules do come out of some input at one point, whether it's misunderstood or not. Like, what do you think causes them to have to make that rule, right? Like, I mean, I'm just curious, that
probably better safe than sorry.
Right.
You know what I mean? That, it's a Schedule 1. So it's going to be a blanketed everything under Schedule 1 has to, come with these provisions, has to come, with this set of rules. You can't go picking and choosing from that, even though cannabis never should have been a Schedule 1. You cannot tell me it does the same thing as heroin.
Yeah, that's always been a tough nut for me to crack. Yeah. As I was smoking a joint or reading about these laws, I was thinking to myself.
The craziest thing, heroin came from a drug company. That's why it has the name heroin. It was supposed to make you feel heroic.
Yeah. And well, I mean, look, weed, cocaine, it's all been legal previously. Like we just went through this sort of weird blip in the middle where we lost our shit for a minute and and now it seems to be coming back around, but with great drudgery, I think. Right. But you know what? I'm involved in a couple psychedelic projects as well. And we talk about psychedelics a lot in here. And I feel like what this has actually been very good for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But now we're actually, I think without a coherent rule for all of these things, I think it's ending up muddying the waters. Now I've had more conversations than I'd care to admit with people that are very confused about the difference between cannabis and psychedelics. And they're like, well, now people are just tripping on acid and we got to cut down the marijuana rules. And I'm like, huh? Yeah. And listen, this is maybe that one's like, kind of glamorized for story here a little bit to make fun of it. But there's a whole swath of humans here in this country that really don't know the difference and don't understand how this goes. So now for people like yourself, for people like me and the psychedelic folks, like it makes it, I don't want to say harder, but definitely different, more complex, more nuanced, more layered to have a conversation about it. Cause now you have to almost defend weed in a psychedelic conversation and vice versa.
Yeah.
No, we've had two people on this show, by the way, that do psychedelic cannabis, which further blurs the line between these things.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah, right. Because now I'm like, and the first one we had on, I was like, lady, are you serious? You're calling, you could do this?
That's not a word.
That's not a thing. And listen, and then we had another one on. I'm like, oh my God, there's 2 of you out there. They're like, oh no, it's a whole thing. I'm like, oh Jesus.
No, and they're running at the mouth is the problem. You know what I mean? And that's one of my biggest things is don't talk about something that you know nothing about. You know what I mean? Educate yourself. You don't have to be for it. You don't have to be against it, but at least have some solid education behind it before you start spouting off.
Right.
And that goes for any subject.
Well, yes, certainly. So in a world where look, for better or for worse, in 50 states, you can kind of get weed in some shape or form in most of them. Like, what does an advocate have to do these days? Like, where's the focus on advocacy when it's so widely available?
And if you, Angie, if you got to keep it in your state, that's fine. Yeah, you know, whatever.
Well, I've got a good example. So like the hash in Ann Arbor, it's been, I think we're coming up on like 55 years. And it started with John Sinclair, who got busted for 2 joints. And they threw him in federal prison. He was going to spend a decade in federal prison. And, you know, this huge rally got together in good old liberal Ann Arbor and fought to get him out. So, and then it was about medical access. And that's what the hash bash was all about. And then it was about recreational and adult use. And then once that came about, and like you said, okay, well, what's the next fight? At least here in Michigan, for the hash bash, it is about getting these people out of prison that are in jail for this plant when there are people making millions upon millions of dollars for doing the exact same thing that they are in jail for.
It's hysterical because we literally just had Ryan Root on the show.
Okay.
And Ryan was using anabolic steroids, and he was teaching other people how to use it. And he ended up going down in a cyber sting called Operation Cyber Juice. He was one of the largest online retailers of it. He did, Matt, how many years?
4 years.
4 years. And then when he gets out, he opens up a legal HRT clinic, and he's making millions. And the irony that he had to go through all of that just to do it credibly, just to do it safely the way he was doing it. I mean, by all accounts that he told us, he was very responsible with it and very knowledgeable about it. And to your point before, what's the difference between doing testosterone, if it's only affecting you, if it's your decision, if you are educated on it, versus any other substance?
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, so it's, and it, like you said, it's ridiculous that so many of these people have to suffer for the cause, you know, so that's, you know, a big thing that, you know, the hash bash does. And I mean, they drum up all kinds of money to fill, you know, the commissary, you know, for the people who are actually behind bars and their legal fees and, you know, all of that. So that right now is, you know, as far as advocacy goes, that is definitely the biggest push that we got going on here.
Does it partner with other organizations like Last Prisoner Project?
Yep, Last Prisoner Project Redemption is a cannabis brand here in Michigan. I want to say they're in Massachusetts, a couple of other East Coasters. They do an absolutely fantastic job of getting the word out there. Every pre-roll sale, every, you know, gram sale, a portion goes to, you know, helping getting these people out of the clink.
Now, my conspiracy hat's on for a moment. I want to ask a question here. Is the reason these people can't get unjailed because jail is wildly lucrative?
Yes.
Is that like the answer?
That's how they ended up there in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That and or they had a firearm when they got caught. And, you know, like I said, all of a sudden that turns into a slap on the hand to, you know, a minimum. That
is kind of jaw-dropping that they're that sort of binary about that, right? Especially if the I'm assuming we're not talking about people that had like a filed off serial number gun, like, you know.
No, they're not even violent criminals. I mean, there was no violence involved. It was just simply possession, you know, or intent to distribute. But, you know, was he helping cancer patients? You know what I mean? Did his mom have palsy? You know what I mean? It's things like that really need to be reassessed. But, you know, like you said, Matt, you know, the prison system is certainly profitable. So let's not rush to get them out.
You know, let's not rush. First of all, no one's rushing for anything. So I don't know why this would be any different. But like, I guess just to play devil's advocate again for a quick second. I mean, there was a story years ago, right when Colorado went medical or went adult use, I think. Yeah, adult use. There was a woman who I believe went to jail. At a minimum, she definitely lost her shop. But she did it because she went to another county, bought weed, brought it back to her county. And Colorado's very simple rules. And, you know, I wouldn't say that. Let me back that up. All of these rules around cannabis are intrinsically complicated, but they're finite. And you can understand them. Like they might be ridiculous. You might disagree with half of them, but they are followable.
Mhm.
And she broke the rule. Like, I'm like, look, the state gave you carte blanche to sell weed. All you had to do is follow these rules. And she didn't. And so people are like, the fucking man and all. I mean, they just came down on this sort of punishment. And I'm like, she's an idiot. Like, this woman broke the fucking law, plain and simple. It was her own choosing. It was her own stupidity. There was plenty of other options. It's not like she was back up against a wall. And it's going to sound like a shitty thing to say, but even if grandma's got palsy and mom's got MS and everything, like, there's still a very legal, not so crazy path to doing this the right way. So if you are getting caught in these snares, you're kind of the problem, not the other way around, right? Like, I don't know. Am I oversimplifying that?
No, I don't think so. So like here in Michigan, we get all kinds of people who come from out of state.
Okay.
Wisconsin doesn't have a program, Illinois or Illinois does. Indiana doesn't have a program. So they come over to Michigan in droves.
Sure.
They know damn well you're not supposed to cross state lines.
Sure.
Period.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they do it every single day. So when you get popped, you got nobody to blame but yourself.
So I drive over the border to Indiana with an eighth I just bought. What's the punishment there?
Indiana's actually pretty hardcore. They'll throw you in jail for a joint.
Really?
Yeah, they're ridiculously hardcore.
Wow. That's got to be hard. They're surrounded by a bunch of liberals. Like, how is that possible? Like, how did they end up being so?
I don't know, but you should see like that little corner of Michigan. There's like 4 or 5 pot shops that will actually share the same parking lot.
That's
wow.
hilarious.
That's hysterical.
There's much business to be made off of Indiana.
That's like the right across the border in PA.
Yeah.
There's the second you get over that line, there's a giant ass fireworks shop. Like, it is insanity.
It's like a Kohl's level or
it's like,
Macy's
do you
level.
want something that's like almost a bomb? We got it. You're not supposed to take it over Maryland. See ya. Parking lot only head south.
Right.
Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, out in Maryland at the end, but West Virginia has the same thing. And like the West Virginians, I mean, they're still in Appalachia out there, dude. Like, those guys are not, zero fucks given about anything. They're like, no, we
sell you straight dynamite.
Yeah, we just like, wow. Yeah. Funny enough, though, I think West Virginia is not so happy about the weed thing. So like there's a lot of people, Maryland is like Maryland did it a little fucked up, though. They actually did it by senatorial district, and the panhandle of Maryland has almost no people in it. So the first 2 counties, if you're going from west to east in the panhandle, are basically, they share a senatorial district. So if you were in the West Virginia border of Maryland, they put both of the legal dispensaries in a town called Cumberland, which is an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes from that furthest location. So cancer patients who are living in there, which it's very rural anyway, they're used to a little bit of driving. They actually only have an hour and a half, hour and 20-minute drive.
Wow.
And the state was like, yeah, but everywhere else in the state, there's one within 10 minutes of your house. And
there's at least 3 within 2 miles of my house.
Yeah, no, we have them everywhere. But that's because we live in a more densely populated place. Senatorial district's a little bit different because they're much smaller geographically.
Yeah. I mean, I live in the country and I've got a pot shop that'll deliver to my front door.
I love it. Yeah.
That's crazy. You mentioned they're still selling by the gram, and at those prices, 2 joints is like what, $3, $4?
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that have been in the growing business for years, and they all complain about the price, but I'm like, 20 years ago when you started your grow, you didn't see this being like a likelihood. It cost almost nothing to grow weed. It costs slightly more than that to grow really good weed.
Well, and it depends. I mean, your electricity bill is not small.
No.
Yeah.
Things like that. And, here you get where you fit. A lot of municipalities won't allow for it. And that's why you see, just huge, piles here and there. And then you've got to drive, like you said, an hour and a half.
Right.
The next one. Our wonderful governor, though, just placed a 24% wholesale tax on cannabis here in Michigan. So we have the 6% sales tax. This is on recreational. We had the 10% sin tax. And now she's added an additional 24 wholesale tax. So
So
we're
you're at 40% tax on
we
weed.
are about to be the second highest, I think, outside of Washington State for cannabis taxes. So she pretty much just cut the legs out from underneath our industry, which is ridiculous. You use us like a cash cow, but then you do it to such an extreme to where it's going to shut down half of the businesses.
Do you really think that though? I kind of might push back on you a little bit on there.
Well, because of such the saturation, they're already struggling, and that's why our $75 ounce prices, you add that 24% tax onto it, and it is going to make it even worse for the little guy. I'm a huge fan of mom and pot shops.
Yeah.
As opposed to the big, Apple store.
Yeah, the multi-state operators, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
And that was the same thing when they started in Maryland. They were really incentivizing the small businesses, especially minority owned, but then they basically, strangled them until they sold to a bigger chain.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. And then insult to injury, they're saying that they're going to use this tax to fix the roads. So insult to injury, they're looking to pull $420 million.
Mm.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love that they have a sense of humor about that because...
Well, yeah, and we're still fighting it. The judge says we'll hear it, but we're not going to automatically throw it out. It's going to go on and on and on. The only people who are going to make any money are the attorneys. And our roads are going to continue to be shit. I am 52 years old, and our roads have always been garbage.
Right. And the reality is like all they're going to do is find new ways to waste the money. I mean, that's pretty much true.
Whether it even goes in the direction it's supposed to. Yeah.
You can't, I guess where I'm at with that though, is you can't blame, I mean, look, I can't remember the exact numbers, but when Colorado did their first quarter review, they had turned on like so much more money than they had seen from anything in a long, long time. And so I think that there is sort of, it's almost inevitable that a government or a municipality of any kind is going to be like, hey, if they didn't shutter at 1%, how about 5? Nope, that we can still do it there. How about 10? How about 20? I mean, maybe 40 breaks the bank and then they have to wind that back a little bit. But like, I mean, I feel like all these municipalities are like teenagers, like testing their parents' patience. Like they're like, okay, how far can I push the envelope before mom gets pissed off?
And our municipalities get a chunk of change every year. From the licenses, within their borders, so this is, on top of it. I mean, this is, the big lady, saying this is what I want out of this industry. And she sees it as a pot of gold. But again, if these businesses, can't survive, that pot of gold is, going to be pretty light.
But I mean, at a $75 ounce, even with a 40% tax on top of it, which is going to be shouldered by the consumer, not, because that'll all go up. That still puts it at cheap weed prices.
That's like if we get $100 ounce here, you had points. You bought the sale one. Like you've been saving up for that. That doesn't happen here. What like 175 to 200 an ounce is kind of.
So like, I guess my point is like when I was in New York City, a pack of cigarettes used to cost like $5. Then it was 10. Now it's like 22 or something ridiculous. How many people stopped smoking? I haven't noticed anybody. I mean, yes, my friends don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but I feel like that's just our age. I walk down the streets, I see plenty of people smoke.
Yeah, and they're always going to buy. It's the 75 ounce guy that the reason that it's so low is because he's trying to keep his head above water. This just might be the stone in his lap that.
Yeah.
But if everybody raises their prices because they're going to have to, then the whole industry goes up a little bit, right? Like, I mean, you can't.
We're hoping so. And that's their thinking is it's going to level this market out because we still don't have a cap on growing license, on retail license. We have no caps. The only people who the people who put the caps on are the individual municipalities. They may say we only want 3 within our city limits. But as far as going to the state, come one, come all, they'll take your money. And then it's just a matter of finding, where you fit
where you can grow. Yeah.
I'm sure you have this too, but I can't tell you how many dozens and dozens of people I've talked to over the years that really came to this with the wrong starting point, right? So they came and they're like, we're going to sell weed and it's just going to rain cash. Like, like it's
well,
just,
I'm sure it did in the first little bit, right? I'm sure it did.
I mean,
but God, Matt, we've interviewed a bunch of people that went bankrupt selling weed.
Yeah.
And to me, like when I first heard it, I'm like, are you fucking stupid? And then you're like, no, here's the levers that get pulled. And this is how you end up here. And it's kind of crazy to see that. Like, it's not just tax, it's other regulations,
Well, in Maryland, the security detail was intense, right? So like a lot of them used to have man traps, Angie, and that's expensive to build, right? Like, you got to have the doors that open on both, they've gotten rid of that for the most part, in a lot of them, but a lot of them no. And, I think the only way to get around it is actually having a storefront. There's all these, but that's more of a tax skirting because, like by square footage of that's not weed versus weed, all this stuff. But a lot of it wasn't yes, it was expensive and it was an undue expense, but it was also kind of sane, right? You have a shit ton of weed up here and there's a lot of people, we're right next to we're in Baltimore. Tom and I are just outside of it, but still there's a criminal element in parts of Baltimore that would be all too happy to rob your ass. And
I remember they drove a truck through one of the stores, but when the store's closed, it's all behind a giant safe. It's better security than a jewelry store. So basically all they did was break a brick wall and a couple of display cases that were empty.
Yeah. Detroit, they get hit all the time. Just driving through. It's a pain in the ass for the staff that, runs that pot shop because you got to pull everything off the shelves and put, throw it all in the safe at night, just back out the next morning. But, to your point about, these delusions of grandeur of, I'm going to open up a pot shop and I'm going to be a billionaire overnight. I worked for a company that was the first one in the entire county. I mean, we were it, so of course it's easy to say, okay, we win all the money because you've got to drive 40 to 45 miles in any direction to find another pot shop. And that kind of got to the partners' heads and their egos. Which, gave them those delusions of grandeur. We can't be touched. And, they're watching money, roll in hand over fist. And it's like, well, here comes the second one, they didn't like that, and here comes the third one. And it's like, how long did you think you were going to be king shit a turd mountain?
Yeah, for sure.
It was just a matter of time.
Great Sturgill Simpson song, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but you're absolutely right. But that's the thing. That is something that any business owner ever already had on the roadmap in their brain. If you had any business sense of any kind, right? And to sort of again, the pricing of weed, I remember having conversations 20 years ago with growers about where the pricing of weed was going to go. And we were all absolutely dead on accurate, not because I'm that smart, but because it's that fucking obvious. It was you know what I mean? This is not rocket science, people. This. And I talked to a person who made a ton of money in consulting for people to put these spreadsheets together for investors and all this stuff. And all of her graphs for cost of goods sold went down. And they're like, oh, that's great. And she's like, yeah, but so does the revenue on this. They're like, no, that needs to go the other way. And she's like, that's illogical. It's never going to happen. And they're like, oh no, but yeah, we want to make it cheaper, but we also want to make more money. I'm like, what? Yeah, so does everybody. That sounds great. Yeah. What business are you? What business do I sign up to get that deal? No. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people. I mean, the joke we had here in Maryland is just because you had a successful weed business out of the back of your Fiero does not mean you are going to, do a good weed shop here. You know what I mean? No dispensary thrives like that. Now they're all multi-state anyway. I mean, it doesn't, they're all private equity backed or, big operators. So on a federal thing, do you have anything to do federally? Is your activism taking you out of Michigan at all? Or are you pretty much a local girl?
No, my biggest thing is, at the counter, because, my heart's always been in medical. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of access. I believe everybody should have access. Call it medical, call it recreational, call it what you want. But I really believe that the medical aspect of it is being lost if it hasn't been completely lost since recreational came along. So my big thing is really to train the kids behind the counter. And they're not all kids. Maybe it's a Western thing that we call people kids and you guys. And
Yeah.
not really politically correct, but that's where it's at for me. You know what I mean? It is getting these people behind the counter, because there's such a huge disconnect of, say the 65-year-old veteran, who just wants something that he can go to sleep, and the 22-year-old, behind the counter. Neither one are going to show any respect for each other. And it's just bridging that gap and, letting him know that, yeah, you may be paying $100 for that ounce, but I tell you what, it's going to help you sleep better than that, $35, half ounce, that's been sitting there.
Right.
And just, trying to, bring the education back into the pot shops. And it doesn't necessarily have to be preachy. I don't want it to be preachy. People will automatically shut you down if they don't want to hear it, but you can totally trick them into things. They stick their nose into something and they're like, oh my God, that smells amazing. As you're packing it up, you can give them a little speech on limonene. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though they didn't ask for it, they still left learning more about the plant and why his purchase is going to be better for him than when he walked.
How receptive have you found customers to be? Because I was at a dispensary a couple months ago, and some kid on his 21st birthday with his mom coming in there to buy it. And the bud tender's like, so what kind of effect are you looking for? Without even blinking an eye, he was like, highest THC you got. Like that was it. There was it was basically straight to the punchline. And
I mean, isn't that the, hey, let's do shots of Everclear, I just turned 21. I mean, that's the same mentality, right?
I don't disagree, but more and more at the dispensary, people are just like, what's the highest test you have today? Like, what's the, like it feels like it's a recurring thing. But
I mean, even the indica sativa kind of argument is like, right. It's so much more nuanced than that. And I almost feel like people want that binary bucket just so they know what they're getting. And even like, I'm like, look, you're going to say indica. I'm going to look at the terpenes in that one because I know more than that. But that tends to be where those flavor profiles are for me.
Yeah, you know, for sure. And I've always trained staff to skip over that, when they say, all right, what's the strongest place, what's the strongest stuff in the place? Just, okay, what are you looking to use it for? You completely, it's not the, hey man, I got the fire right fucking here.
Yeah.
It's, are you going out tonight? Are you having a hard time sleeping? You know what I mean? You kind of pull them away from it, and then when they do see that's a 21% THC, but have you seen the pine in this son of a bitch? Let me show you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And just, like I said, you almost got to trick them into it. 9 times out of 10, people don't go to a pot shop to get educated.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
They've got a heavy ability, or a super duper just got clobbered, with the diagnosis. Do they want to learn? But there are absolutely ways that, you can trick them into not only not buying the highest THC, but learning why they shouldn't be looking for the highest THC.
Sure. So along those lines, when you're talking about education, you said you were a whole plant person. Are you helping people understand the difference between vaporizing whole plant versus dabbing a concentrate?
All day. Yeah. So in my last book, actually it's in both books, I bust down the 5 different ways to extract. So, I mean, I start with like old school, and I love my temple balls. The old school dash in my heart.
The Tony Cannoli style.
Yeah. Oh, man.
My absolute favorite. But I start there, and then, bubble hash, and then, BHO, and, the difference between rosin and resin, which most bud tenders do not know the difference and understand that one is solventless and one is not.
That's surprising just because of their job that they wouldn't know that differentiation.
Yeah.
Well, look, they're looking for work. They like weed. It makes sense for them to get a job there. I totally get that.
But Matt, I mean, here in Michigan, you need 0 education requirements to sell weed.
Sure,
you have to know what THC is. You have to know what CBD is. You need to know what the definition to dosage is. That's it.
Right. Bar
set. Right. So I'll go in and I do recon. And they're like, "You looking for an indica or sativa?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for something with some myrcene in it." And the last guy was like, "Well, give me a minute, ma'am. First of all, ma'am, And he says, is that a terpene? I wanted to staple my book to his fucking forehead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I
Is that a
mean?
terpene? Well, it sure is not a fucking cake ingredient, you dumb fuck.
It
yeah,
is
what the-
not. Love a Pete. So it's really important for me to get these people educated because again, there's so many, I would say 1 in 4 people that walk into a pot shop are there for medical reasons. So they're not there just to buy the joint for the Friday night down by the bonfire just to get blazed.
Right.
Disagree with you. I've been in there and I've seen some people that clearly are suffering with something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would say it's probably 50-50 where we are.
I have to say, Angie, most of the bud tenders, I don't know. I definitely never want to, I don't want to ever say all of them, but I would dare say the vast majority that I've dealt with really knew at least a baseline knowledge of different terpenes. Like I'd say Maryland, they do a pretty decent job of that.
There is isn't there like a training course for them?
I'm
Matt,
sure there's gotta be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the basic difference, I mean, just listen, just understanding. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know that have been smoking weed for decades who don't understand what a 3% terpene strain means. Like if you said that, you know, like, oh, this has got over 3% terpenes. They're like, great. Sky's blue. You know, you're like, I have no idea what this means. And then you start breaking it down and you're like, oh, look, this one, I saw a strain not too long ago, had 275, I think it was, of myrcene alone. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
Good night.
Like,
that will knock you on your ass.
That'll put, I mean, look, I'm a professional. That would put me down. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's.
But if it's got a super high percentage of THC, somebody's going to buy that. You know what I mean?
100%.
It's going to be the cat pajamas, and they're not going to have a good Friday night. They're going to be on the couch by 8 p.m. You know, my husband.
I was going to call you ma'am after you used the term cat's pajamas just to fuck with you a little bit there. I was called the bee's knees a couple months ago, and I'm still trying to ring out. I'm like, you were 23, ma'am. Like, do not do that to me,
man.
Easier said than done, you know. But when I met my husband, he was smoking out of a pop can.
Of course he was.
So it makes my just thinking about it. I mean, he's had so many respect the herb speeches.
I'm sure.
And he has come a long way.
He's like, hon, do you have an apple? I got to get high.
Hold on.
Just brutal, just absolutely brutal.
Oh.
So it is, you know, it's baby steps. And of course, you know, people have to be willing to learn. But, you know, who doesn't love a stoner that brings a joint to the circle and go, you know, and says, you know, yeah, this is heavy and mercy, man. This is going to get your shoulders to drop.
Yeah.
You know, and they'd like to be able to tell that story like they know something more about weed than they do.
Well, and I think if I heard that story, I would be the very unpopular guy who's like, tell me more about it. Because everyone else there is like, what the fuck is this idiot talking about? Like, I don't want to like it.
Puff gives.
Yeah, like, we're not here to hear about your shoulders, dude. Like, fucking pass that joint. Yeah, no, I mean, and then I tell people, I mean, this is a byproduct of the show, but I've actually told my son this actually recently. He was, you know, he's 17, talking about, you know, stuff, going to college soon, you know, getting more educated. And I say, listen, you know, unfortunately, a lot of things that I do, like cannabis is one of them, it's become very intentional, right? Like I've got in my house at any given time a handful of strains and they all have a reason, right? Like this one helps me write proposals. This one helps me do our creative work. This one helps me go to bed. This one helps me. And I really do find myself leaning on those, honestly. And I'm not saying this just to be cute, but I don't remember the last time I sat down and got high just because. Like, I honestly don't know when that was. It would have been years.
Yeah. Yeah. And cannabis, you know, it should have a purpose. You know, there's plenty that I'm like, I love this, you know, when I'm, you know, playing cards with the old man because it makes me giggly and I can focus on his bullshit math skills and make sure he's not cheating me out of my points.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a huge fan of 1-to-1s. Those are my absolute favorite.
Oh, really?
But you don't see them in the shops.
You don't.
Because I would have to chalk that up to a lot of the bud tenders have never tried them.
Sure.
To know their effects, to try and push their effects. I've always been a big fan because, you know, I've, you know, got a disability, but I don't want to be all grassed up on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I think here, at least from what I've seen, the marketing, the packaging, and the names of those 1-to-1 sound a little bit more medical, right? It doesn't look like a prescription, but it's like a simpler label. Here's what it is. It may still have a name, but it almost like it hints to like, hey, this is a little bit more medical.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's Cannatonic. We've got an all CBD strain here called Cannatonic. And it's a thing from Cannatonia.
That's funny. We had a cart company here for a while. I haven't seen it in a while now that we're talking about it. I haven't thought about this in a long time, but it had an 8-to-1 all the way to a 1-to-8. And they arranged it in like in a line.
What company was that? I remember them. They had like a pharmacist running the whole damn thing, right?
I haven't seen that. I haven't even thought about that company in a long time, but it was kind of neat because you could literally pick everything. You could be like, I have a 7-to-1 CBD slant or a 7-to-1 THC slant. Like you know what I mean? Like I can kind of go either direction, and it was an interesting idea. But again, I think that only favors the educated. I don't think the casual person is really knowing what that means. And it's a lot of work, Angie. Let's talk about that for a second. I took pictures of every, I'm sure you have this in Michigan too. We actually have a QR code now, which makes it a lot easier. You take a QR code and it pops up a screen that says, here's the lab test of this. You can get a pesticide report, everything. But I did that for years trying to figure out for me, myrcene, beta-carotene, if they're matched, sight unseen, I love that. Like this is like, this
doesn't matter what it's called.
It doesn't matter what it's called.
Well, but even that, we had this discussion with other people. Look, Granddaddy Perps or whatever in Michigan is going to be different from store to store, and then countrywide, completely different profiles.
Exactly. So you do have to know. And here in Michigan, we don't have a requirement for a terpene test. The only thing they have to test for are cannabinoids and like mold and all the other ick.
So when you're selling, do you have a label that has all of that on it, or is that just bypassed?
You really, really have to push the grower to get that to you.
So I guess we got that right, Matt.
And then it's on their dime, I assume. So they're not.
Yeah, it is on their dime.
That the Purple Punch is the same thing as the Grape Stomper. Look at the profile. So look at these. They're the exact same thing, even though she's hell-bent that Grape Stomper stops her migraines and Purple Punch won't. Lady, it's the same fucking thing.
Right. It's the same thing, yeah. Like, all you have to do is read.
Right, let me show you. But there's no requirement for terpene test. And one of my arguments with the state is that there are also allergens, in terpenes. If you're allergic to this stuff in nature, maybe not fire up a bowl of it.
Right, sure. Yeah.
And that was throwing cat dander in a pipe, right?
Yeah. Lavender really always makes me break out in hives, but there's this wonderful strain that I love. I don't know why I almost had an anaphylactic shock, but hey, cool.
Right.
Oh man. It's funny. I never thought about the allergy thing. I'm not really allergic to much, but it's not on my radar, but I've never even heard of it.
Because there's been strains where I'm like, I'm not scromiting, but I'm like, why do I need to blow my nose every 30 seconds? Why is this one making me cough? Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's bound to happen. I just never really, I hadn't heard anyone really actually reporting that. Angie, listen, I could talk to you all day about this. What do you want us to tell people about you? Like, obviously,
give us links, tell us book names,
where to find you, all that good stuff. Let's.
Okay, so I've written 2. One is specifically for the layman to know a little bit about their shit before they go into a pot shop. It's called Pot for the People.
I love that.
The next one is the Bud Tender's Blueprint. Your words matter. What comes out of your mouth matters. Have some respect for the plant and for the consumer that you're talking to. Both can be found on AngieRoullier.com. Angie, ROULLIER.com. If you're more comfortable, you can use bookshop.org, who promotes independent bookstores, or you can always go with the necessary evil that is Amazon.com.
Yeah, it's the necessary evil, but but you know what? It's funny on your site. You said you had a funny thing, and I wanted to like laugh about it, but it's like, if you hold in your hit, does it make you higher? Like, are these really the questions that you are getting?
Oh yeah.
Well, they've been going on since time began. Oh, don't you want to absorb all of that? And people know.
The mangoes, the whole mango.
Oh, the mango thing, yeah.
because the myrcene is held in the peels, but so is the terpene omecine, which is actually found in poison ivy and poison oak.
Okay.
So maybe not on that either.
How weird is that? I had a patient mention that to me the other day. She goes, I didn't realize I was so reactive to mangoes because I'm highly sensitive to poison ivy.
Yeah.
No,
that
I know
was
they're the
literally
same.
yesterday, Angie. How weird is that?
But you know what's really
it's crazy.
funny? That mango thing's been haunting us. There's products out there that are like mango extract that you're supposed to take when you get high, and it's supposed to lock you. I think one of them was called couch lock.
Yeah.
Right. I just thought it was funny because I haven't heard anyone ask that question in decades. Like, it's been a minute, and I'm like, wow, are people still asking this? Like, because that's funny.
Well, I went into the archives, for, some of this stuff. And,
that's funny.
The Henry Ford help car, is the white ash. Does it mean that your joint is cleaner? Just all of these, legends.
Things you heard in a circle, huh?
I like that. So I have not heard that question before. I mean, what's the answer? Does it mean anything, or is it just
with the ash?
Yeah.
So some will say if it's got heavy pesticides, the ash is going to come out a lot darker. Ideally, you want a white to a really light gray ash. But then I had somebody also explain it to me. Think like when you're doing a campfire and the wood isn't completely dry.
Right.
It doesn't turn to ash. It turns into those black, chunks like charcoal, which means that the flower wasn't cured properly.
Oh, wow. See, I love when people get nerdy about a subject because, like, that's just fun to me. Like, oh, cool. Let's dive in and
honestly, when
color.
somebody talks with knowledge, it sounds very different than they're like, yeah, so this is how it happens. It's a very different conversation.
And that's how I wrote it, is so it's in plain good old English and everybody can apply it to their own lives. I really tried to take what the hell did you just say out of it.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, then I have one question for you that you might be able to debunk for me. I have been of the mindset for a long time that vaporizing whole flower is sort of the gold standard of how to ingest cannabis.
It is.
Debunk me?
You're definitely going to get more out of it. You lose so much with combustion.
Sure.
And you don't get that from the dry vape. You actually are going to get more cannabinoids. You're going to get more terpenes because you're not blasting them off.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. It's just, the act of combustion isn't good for anybody. So you're right. In my opinion, if you're going to smoke flower, vaporization is absolutely the way to go. And you can still taste it.
Yeah. And I love that you can taste it. And we got real nerdy a couple years ago and got a temperature expression chart for every one of them, the terpenes. And it's fascinating because if you set your vape to like 375, you get these. And if you go to 385 and then 395, and you can just keep going up the chain, as it were, you can basically keep that thing using it way longer than if you just sparked a joint and just,
For sure. And when it comes to concentrates, they say, how does the saying go? You got to waste it to taste it. So it's like blasting it at like 700 degrees and getting like everything out of it. Well, first of all, you're cooking off all the terps. All you're getting is the most THC you possibly can. But if you're wasting some of that THC, you're actually going to get some of those terpenes in there. And in both books, I've got the boiling points of all of the terpenes that I've got listed in there that tell you at what point will that, limonene cook off at. At what point is that myrcene going to cook off at?
Yeah.
Delta-3 chirene, that's what gives us cottonmouth. Its job is to whisk away fluid, and it's what gives you the dry mouth. So
I love it. I love
awesome.
it. Weed has always been really fun. I bought headshop.com because I liked weed and all the toys that came with it and everything. I was like, you know what? I just think I had an opportunity and I was like, you know what? This is just going to be fun. I don't know how, but it'll be fun. It has not been always fun. I'm just going to let you know that, but it is fun looking back and being like, look at all the stuff I got to learn and play with that I would never have done. And I think that's fun to teach people about it too. So I appreciate what you're doing over there.
Well, thank you. I love what I do. Conversations all day, every day.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Well, Angie, thanks again so much. Really enjoy the freezing ass cold over there in Michigan. We're going to be doing the same thing over here. Cool, man. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Have fun. Take care.
Good one.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.